Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Pacific Rim. A wormhole which is opened up in the middle of the ocean to release giant monsters that go and attack the Earth. And so the Earth bands together and starts building giant robots to combat these giant monsters called Jaegers, which are successful against fighting these giant monsters until bigger and more powerful monsters start coming through the wormhole and there starts being problems. So they get one of the older Jaeger pilots who has since reformed after his brother was killed in a very horrific accident. And to control these Jaegers, they actually have to combine their minds, and one guy controls one arm, the other guy controls the other arm. And so when his brother was ripped off, it was quite traumatic, not just because of his brother, because he experienced it. So they bring him back and have him work with a rookie, and they try to fight together to defeat these giant monsters from basically destroying the Earth. I think Pacific Rim is very well crafted. It's a perfect kind of genre blockbuster, almost too perfect. It kind of reminds me of James Cameron, especially the later works of James Cameron, which isn't necessarily a great thing. Nothing in the script really is new. It's very cliche ridden. All these stories are people we've seen before in various other movies from probably even the silent era, having this experienced, rattled guy with a traumatic past coming together with the rookie who he believes in. And it almost feels like I've seen parts of this movie and other movies before. It feels kind of like how Avatar did. The reason Cameron is so successful, especially now, is because he knows how to really craft a story, even though it might not be the most original story that he is crafting. He can craft it well, and Del Toro does that very well in Pacific Rim. In a lot of ways, I think what makes Pacific Rim such a special kind of movie isn't the script or the characters, although those are actually very well structured. So you can almost think like, hey, these are good characters, but there's no real kind of arc. There's kind of an arc. You understand why they're fighting at least. But I think the real fun of this movie is the action sequences, which are some of the best I've seen this summer, with the giant robots and the monsters, and especially the famous scene from the trailer where you pick up the oil tanker and use it as a baseball bat. You can tell Del Toro is having fun. I've kind of been itching for a Del Toro blockbuster, and this doesn't disappoint on that end, because he still has the very well-designed Del Toro monsters. The robots are very well designed. I think these are some of the best designed special effects I've seen in a long time. I think a lot of special effects start to look the same. They start to look similar. And honestly, special effects aren't as special as they used to be. Direction-wise, I think this is really well directed. I wouldn't say this is Del Toro the auteur. I'd say this is more Del Toro the craftsman. And he made a very well-crafted genre blockbuster. It's so genre blockbuster, I don't know if it escapes from its genre blockbuster. I mean, it soars in its genre blockbusterness, but it's also limited in its genre blockbusterness on the pure kind of escapism level. And on that level, it succeeds brilliantly. It succeeds so well. I haven't seen a Hollywood movie do giant robots like this. It's like there's something amazing about someone that can just make an amazing chair. He didn't reinvent the wheel or anything. This isn't anything new, but it's just like so perfectly done. It's kind of, you're a little bit in awe of it, but it's still like, yeah, but it's just kind of a chair. And then you're like, I'm sitting comfortably, I'm having a good time. Maybe I'm kind of asking for something more because Del Toro's been made into something, and maybe it's the pretenses that's been put upon him that I'm more responding to. But it's also like, with a movie like this, should I anticipate more? Should I believe that these characters should be incredibly relatable and have like great acting in it? I mean, this reminds me of kind of like a live action cartoon, almost like Speed Racer. It does have a great artistry to it, it certainly does, but I don't think it has that kind of crossover artistry. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? In a lot of ways, I think it is a good thing, because I see a lot of blockbusters and I think a lot of them take on things they can't take on. They try to act like there's arcs in there that aren't. And Pacific Rim doesn't do any of that. Pacific Rim has no pretense about itself. It gets what it is. It is what it is. And it's very amazing at it. And there's something kind of glorious about how Del Toro crafted this giant robot movie. There's a lot of anime influences. I'm a guy who throughout middle school watched a lot of Macross and Macross Plus and Robotech, and this reminded me of that. It didn't feel like he was doing anything new with the genre. So it's like, should I be disappointed in that? Because I see so many people try to do kind of these big ideas that certain genre things shouldn't tackle, and they don't have the respect of the genre. There's sometimes, there's so many convoluted blockbusters, so much crappy blockbusters, and ones that come one ear and out the other. I kind of like a good craftsman, someone who's not trying to do a million things and being socially conscious, someone who's like, I just want to make this thing and I want to do it really well. That's what I get from Pacific Rim. And the thing with Del Toro is I've always been told and I've always felt he's a good storyteller, and that's not really on display. But the style and the aesthetics of him are on display, and his craftsmanship as a storyteller is on display. And I love that about Pacific Rim, and it's so good at it. It's not a great acted movie. There's no great character charm in it. I kind of like Charlie Day. I like all the character actors thrown throughout this film. Ron Perlman, of course. But the two leads, the one girl, Mako, who looked like an Asian Ramona Flowers, and Riley, just felt like constructs of various other characters in the way that Jake Sully did in Avatar. I did like Idris Elba. He felt the most like I felt I saw him in an anime or a Robotech. I should probably just accept that this is really good at what it's doing, and that's an awesome thing. I'm always complaining about blockbusters taking on way too much, and this film just really doesn't do that at all. It just wants to be an awesome giant monster movie, and I don't think America's really made an awesome giant monster movie in a long time. I think we have a lot of promise to do it. Certainly we like things that go boom. This movie fulfills those promises incredibly well. Really, we should be celebrating someone who can make a really well-crafted genre blockbuster giant robot movie. That's an awesome thing. That's what I like about Pacific Rim, but there's nothing more than that. And I don't think maybe you should expect anything more than that. And maybe a good storyteller doesn't need to expand upon a certain genre, and maybe that's the fault of why all these other kind of directors fall apart when they make these other movies, because they're doing way too much and they fail at them. If you look at this under artistic intent, it's an amazing success, and also it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's simple almost in its intent, but there's a lot of creativity and fine craftsmanship behind its simplicity, and that's a really awesome thing. So if you have seen Pacific Rim and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Robots are pretty cool.